Don't worry about that. Focus on the people that accept you. And the more you focus on the people that accept you, then it's like sheep following a herd. They're going to be on your team eventually by the time that you're done. But you'll see them loosen up a little bit. And there are different tactics to do that, because typically you're sitting next to somebody who is a stranger when you go to a seminar, for example, and they are closed off because they're protecting themselves. There's a study that was done in a social study class I learned when I was in like sixth grade. And back in the day, a long time ago, when they had phone booths, they had an actor dressed up like a bum. And they'd wait till somebody went into the phone booth and they'd say, "Excuse me, can I have a quarter?" And 90% of the time they'd say no.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Your Business, Your Next Level. I'm your host, Eunicia Peret, and today I have Dan Eckelman in the studio with me. He's an international speaker. He comes to us from Columbus, Ohio, and he's the owner of Professional Speakers Bureau International. He has spoken on stages and or worked with some really big names alongside Tony Blair, Donald Trump, Robert Kiyosaki, Susie Orman, Jordan Belfont, Kevin O'Leary, and Dean Graziosi, among many, many others. And it is my true pleasure, Dan, to welcome you in the studio today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that, and happy to do what I can to educate people out there that are trying to grow their business.
Absolutely. And I'm so happy that you're here, because one of the things that you speak a lot about is public speaking, and how can individuals that are already successful actually get to the next level? How do we perfect perfection is what I'll call it. Talk to us a little bit about your history first, and then we'll dive into some of the other topics.
I am an international speaker, as you said. I have been for 30 years now. I speak all over the world. I graduated from the Ohio State University with a degree in law. Heading down that path, $120,000 in debt and student loans, working for a law firm to put a cap on my salary wasn't my path. So I got into real estate. I think I work what I want, do what I want, make what I want. But I realized pretty quickly it wasn't the brokers making the money, it's investors making the money. I didn't know how to do that at the time, right out of school with no money down, as I know how to today, of course. So I ended up starting a factoring company with another local attorney, factoring of invoices or accounts receivable financing. We built that up to a couple million a month for a small law firm. We were pretty happy with that. Kept getting calls from brokers all over the country, trained by the Open University out of Orlando, Florida. I called them and said, "Who are you guys?" They said, "Oh, well, we teach brokers how to broker privately held notes, like invoices, structured settlement lawsuits, biaticals, insurance policies, mortgage notes, business notes, lotteries, sports contracts." There's about 60 plus income streams like that where people are getting paid money over time, but they want a lump sum of cash today at a discount. It's called a privately held, no different than a credit card transaction. This group out of Orlando teaches brokers how to find deals and send in the companies like mine to fund the deals. I said, "Hey, thank you for all that." I said, "Hey, by the way, we have a training class in the United States and Canada every single weekend. Would you like to teach? We'll give you half a day of the 3 days talking about invoice financing." I said, "Sure, if it gets me more deals." I mean, obviously, I took a public speaking course once, I think, in college maybe. Didn't know what I would ever do with it. It was just a regular public speaking course, and that was it. But what I realized is that we know two things the most. One, we know the most about ourselves. Two, we know the most about what we do for a living every single day. We can surely get up and talk about that. So I said, yeah, if it gets more deals, I'll gladly teach a course on what I do for a living, which is factoring and marketing. And they kept booking me every single weekend. And after a few months, they said, "Hey, you're a great speaker. We'd like you to speak on the front end." I said, "What's that?" They said, "Well, we'll pick a city like New York City. We'll go 2 weeks prior to the training, plaster the TV with a 30-minute infomercial all week long to get people to come to the show. You go there and hit the north, south, east, west side of the city. 1 show Sunday, 2 Monday, 2 Tuesday, 1 Wednesday, 6 shows a week, 90 minutes a show. Talk about privately held notes and sign them up in the training class. That's how you're getting the people you're teaching a speaker precede you." I said, "Hey, sounds like fun to me." So for the next 13 years, 51 weeks out of the year, every week but Christmas, I'm on a plane. 4 days a week, 6 pieces a week on privately held notes. But when I started speaking, I was in my early 30s, and talking about speaking, I was pulling in $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 a year just speaking. Who knew? I had no idea. It's a really created a nice career for me. Then I started speaking on grants and scholarships, then got back into real estate. Started becoming pretty well known in the real estate industry and the speaking industry. And that's when I got a call from Trump to come over to Trump University and Trump Institute to speak for his group as one of his top real estate speakers. And regardless of what anybody thinks, likes, or dislikes about Trump's programs, tax liens And the real estate industry has been in our country for over 300 years, since before our Constitution. It's a phenomenal investment. Trump would just put his name on it as the draw to get people to come to the show. It's just branding. So doing an event once for Trump in Los Angeles, an investor from New Zealand flew up. He said, I heard you're going to be here. I had to come and fly and hear you speak. I spoke on tax liens. And he said, this is phenomenal. He said, can we do tax liens from New Zealand? I said, you can do it from anywhere in the world you want to. We have 3,000 counties in the United States. Trust me, any one of our counties will sell you on a tax lien. So he said, bring a talk from New Zealand. I left Trump Organization. I private labeled a tax lien course with another attorney out of Texas. I put my label on it, went to New Zealand, did a 14-city tour in 14 days north to South Island, and sold $1 million in my training class in 2 weeks just speaking in New Zealand. Went to Sydney the next weekend, sold $1.5 million to a real estate group. I realized at that point, I didn't need Trump's name. I didn't even need a brand. I can take this anywhere. Started becoming very well known in the international speaking circuits and got a call from Richard and Veronica Tan of Success Resources out of Singapore, largest seminar company in the world. And they became my international promoters. And that's who put me on stage with Tony Blair, Robert Kiyosaki, Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street, Mark Victor Hansen, Chicken Soup Books, Robert Allen, Laurel Langmeyer, Spike Hummer, on the biggest stages in the world with the biggest speakers in the world, speaking to 5,000, 10,000 people, bodyguards, drivers, red carpets, dinners, the whole works. So big international run there. And of course, when I wasn't traveling and was back in Ohio where I live, I got back into the law a little bit on estate planning, done with that. Still do little talks on tax liens, primarily focusing this year, speaking on blockchain technology and Web3. I'm executive producer. I raise money for movies in Hollywood, currently working on a TV show, finishing up a book, and a real estate investor. And there you have it. That's all about me.
That is quite the history and quite a road towards accomplishments. Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dan. So tell us a little bit. Obviously, you went into your journey as a public speaker. It's had a lot of beautiful twists and turns. Given that we're speaking with business owners who they're already doing well, most of them, and they're always looking for how can we think outside of the box, that proverbial box? How can we do things differently to, for some, make more money and for some to create more impact? How do you relate your speaking career and more specifically the things that you teach people from a speaking perspective in terms of the value and the impact that they can deliver by simply doing public speaking?
Well, there's an art and delivery. There's an art and a science to public speaking. The science is the construction of a speech. The art is the delivery of it. You can learn how to do that. And it's not something, some people have an innate ability to get up in front of a crowd and basically their confidence level to get in front of a crowd and start speaking. Most people are more afraid. What's the saying? People are more afraid to speak than they are to die. So we've all heard that, right? Just the fear of public speaking.
Is true.
But we have to ask ourselves, where's the fear come from? And is it being judged? Is it doing something wrong? Is it failure? Is it being ridiculed, made fun of? Is it that you're not going to accomplish it? There's many different things, which they're just like anything that you do in life, whether it's investment or a business or sports or whatever it is, you've got to practice it. You have to learn how to do that. So which takes me back to the company that booked me for 13 years. They said, you want to speak on the front end like I told you? I said, sure, let's do that. And they said, here's a 167-page script. Memorize it word for word. I said, that's impossible. No one can do that. No actor has ever done that. They might do a 5 or 10-minute dialogue, nothing else. That's crazy. They said, well, that's how you have to become a speaker on the front end, because that's probably pulling in a couple 100,000 on the back end just teaching, but on the front end you can make 500, 600, 700,000. So it's worth it to me. So I didn't know what to do. So I took the script, I read it, I wrote it, I typed it, I recorded it, I spoke it, I listened to it. Every sense in my body that I could absorb it, I absorbed it. They said, are you ready? No. Are you ready? No. Are you ready? No. They said, well, get ready, because we booked the Marriott Anatole in Dallas, Texas, as your first speaking gig in 2 weeks. So of course, did I sleep? No. Did I try to memorize? Absolutely. Is that the worst thing you can do? Absolutely. Don't ever memorize a speech. It's horrible. So that's not the way to do it. So, but I didn't know that. So anyway, I did everything I could possibly do. So I got to the Marriott Anatole in Dallas, Texas to give my first speech in front of probably 200 people. The managers flew in from Orlando. The owners flew in from Orlando. They gave me a whole road crew, marketing team that flew in. And I got up and I started speaking. And as I'm speaking, they cut me off in the back of the room. And I told them I couldn't do this. They said, well, if you bomb, you can just go back to teach. You're a great instructor. They cut me off. And I wrapped up, I did my close, and it was probably a $5,000 3-day training course people were buying on privately held notes and how to invest in them and broker them. And so people, then I directed them to go back to sign up, and many people did. I thought, wow, I thought I did pretty well because a lot of people were signing up. So as the last person left the room, the whole company stood up, the managers, the owners, the crew, and started clapping for me. I said, what are you clapping about? I said, you cut me off. They said, yes, it was supposed to be a 90-minute speech. You were at 2 hours and 20 minutes and you were still speaking. And you hadn't got your clothes yet. So what that told me was this. When it comes to public speaking, one thing is what we're doing when we give a speech for the very first time. We're searching out here for information because you've never said it before. Therefore, it's not in your memory, at least from a verbal standpoint. And it sounds kind of hokey, but we have to treat our mind like a filing cabinet. If we know where we filed it, then we know where to retrieve it. And what it also told me was the power of our brain to be able to go outside our box, above and beyond our ability to accomplish anything in life. You got to go a step further to do that. And once I realized that I could do it, then I gave the speech for the second time later on that evening. I'm not searching out here anymore for the information I've never said, so I can't put it through my brain and process it to a verbal communication. I'm not searching out here. I've already said it. I said it 5 hours ago before lunch. Now I'm searching in here for it, so I've already said it, and now it's in here. And now I know where I filed it, and now it's easier to retrieve it. And that goes to show you that practice. That if everybody gets up and says their name, hi, my name is Dan Eckelman, I could say that 1 billion times in front of 1 billion people. I'm not going to get nervous about it. Those words are not going to change. My name is Dan Eckelman. There's a speech. It's a short one-sentence speech, but it's a speech. My name is Dan Eckelman. I'm an international speaker from Columbus, Ohio. There's a speech right there. If you keep extending that to 10 minutes, 15, 30, 1 hour, up to 90 minutes, you're saying the same thing over and over and over. It becomes scripted in your mind. You're not memorizing anything. It's just practicing it. And that's the best thing you can possibly do to really learn how to become a really good speaker. Practice.
What's your perspective on, I completely agree on the practice. As a matter of fact, even early on in my career, whenever I still do a lot of public speaking and speaking in different private circles as well. And every now and then I'll literally gather the family and say, okay, it's a new topic that I'm presenting on. I just want you to hear it. And it's so beautiful because sometimes they'll actually come up with questions that I'm like, where did that come from? Of course, going through it and going through the process of just even responding to the question, it doesn't ever make it into a deck or anything else. The likelihood that someone in the audience is going to ask the same question is really high unless I preemptively address it, because it's already come up. So it's almost like it's there, it's in the morphogenic field. And so when you practice and you speak it, you never know what questions will be bounced back at you, even to your own self, if you do it in the mirror, and that will enable you to have a much better presentation. Dan, what I'd love from you, so practice. Right. There's also obviously the art to it, where you get up and you just, you have to find your excitement. That's kind of the soft skills. Something else that's really important is the actual structure of the presentation. And I don't know if people are more afraid of the getting up in front of others or getting through the structure to make sure that they have a solid approach, or both. Talk to us a little bit about this structure.
I'd say it's both. First of all, let me go back and touch on the practice part of it. There are a few ways to practice your speech. One, don't ever record yourself. We are our worst critics. If you want to record yourself, record your intro and don't ever record yourself again. Watch it, wear a different hat, not as a speaker, but now as your audience, as an audience, and watch it and take a look at, see how you do. But you don't want to go any more than that because you're going to keep picking yourself apart. So don't record, just your intro. Also, don't stand in front of a mirror. Come on, who does that? It's hokey, it's ridiculous. It's just not even what anybody does.
I can tell you I've never done it because it does feel hokey. To me, it's just like, just go out there and do the thing. And you also have to resonate with the audience, right? And I guess it works for don't like the fact that you said don't do it in the mirror because it doesn't work.
Our hair, our gestures, our facial expressions, what our body's doing, how we're speaking out of our mouth, we're going to be just picking ourselves apart. We won't be focused on our speech. If you do it in front of a mirror, don't do that. The other thing you don't want to do is don't practice in front of your friends or family. They are not coaches when it comes to public speaking. They're going to want to make fun of you, joke with you, tell you way too much information about what you're doing wrong. And when I coach public speaking, I never will tell you what you do right, to focus on center strength compliments. That's how I coach. And obviously, public speaking is just one thing. It's just storytelling. Now, what you can do to practice, if you want to spend a little bit of money, you can get a room at the library for free, a conference room for free, and then get online and hire a focus group. Probably cost you 10 or 20 bucks a person. Get 10 people in there. Might cost you a couple $100. And then you're speaking to a live group, strangers, which is good because there's that anxiety and comfort. You got to get through that with strangers. It's easy. It's a different level than if you're speaking to your friends or family. That's why you don't want to do it with them, because you're going to be speaking for.
Well, I do share for just knowing my family,
Yeah.
okay, and knowing how I've become a public speaker. They've helped me a ton. The caveat there is when you stand in front of your friends or family and they pick you apart and they nick at everything that you say and they bash you and do whatever, that's where I go on the tangent to say, who are those people? Because the reality is that if you don't have people in your corner that you can rely on, even intimately like that, then we can talk about, who are the people in your life and who do we get either rid of or who do we put aside. But the reality is that in some cases, being able to present at least some of the ideas or have conversations about your speech with someone that's close to you, for me, it has made a world of difference. But realizing that's not the case for other people, that's where really you get to question, who do you have in your corner?
Our friends and our family, they're not going to be afraid to tell us what we're doing wrong. And that's all they're going to focus on. But if we focus on that, we're going to keep doing the same things wrong because we're focusing on what we're doing wrong instead of what we're doing right. But if you do a focus group, don't ask them what you're doing wrong or right because they aren't coaches. So give them an evaluation form and then say, with always positive questions to elicit a positive response. What did you love most about my presentation? Did you love the intro, the body, or the close the most? What did you love about the story I told? Just positive. So you don't focus on the negative. Because if they say, oh, you said the word 13 times, guess how many times you're going to say it next time? 27 times, because you're focusing on the negative instead of the positive. Another thing you can do, which is free, is get your dining room table and fill those chairs with stuffed animals. They've got an eyes, ears, nose, and a mouth. You can look directly at them and give your speech. It's free. It's better than just looking at an empty chair. And that's a good way to practice. Now, back to the structure of it. When you're putting a speech together, there's an intro, body, and a close. Now, which do you think is the most important part of a speech in those three segments?
I will let you answer that question.
Intro. They will know whether or not they like you, buy from you, or take your advice in 2 minutes. That's all the time you got. 2 minutes.
Well, don't they say that you make the first impression in as little as 8 seconds? So yeah, giving them 2 minutes of really cool stuff is very
and I'll tell you a little bit about that in your intro. The close is next. The body is the last part. The body are just buckets of information you can fill with anything you want to fill with, whatever your topic is. But your intro is the most important part of a speech that you can give. They have to know, whether or not they're going to take your advice, whatever that is, or buy from you. So that's why you have to let them know who you are. Trust me when I tell you, they are not buying you. They don't know you. They probably never heard of you. There aren't very many well-branded speakers out there. If we could probably name 5, we probably couldn't name 10 if we know of speakers who are very well-known, a household name. There just aren't very many of them out there. So they probably aren't buying you because they know you, unless it's a referral, but they're buying your topic, your speech, your background, your interest, your expertise in the field, your knowledge. As a public speaker, we have become the higher education for companies to learn from. It's not that pump them up, raw, 90-minute motivational speech that we used to give 10, 20 years ago, and they lose the motivation 90 minutes after they walk out of the room. It's progress. It's productivity in the workplace. That's what we're there to help them based on our background and our experience in the field. And that's what they're buying. So you have to let them know who you are from the very, very beginning so they can have a relationship with you. That's the whole purpose of the intro, is to create that relationship and a common interest with your crowd. For example, if I say, my name is Dan Eckelman, anybody in the crowd whose name is Dan, they're on my team. So let me back that up a minute. I'm sure you've been to a playground when you were little, right? And we've all been to a playground to play kickball or dodgeball or soccer or wiffle ball, whatever. And it's always the drivers of the neighborhood, the ones who control everything and everybody. Okay, I'm the captain. Other one, I'm the other captain. And everybody else is over here. And you say, okay, I want Billy, I want Sally, I want Susan, I want Jeff, I want Ben, I want Bobby. And you pick your team. You play kickball or dodgeball, whatever you're going to play. That's what you're doing when you're speaking. What you're doing is you're getting everybody from the audience on your team by giving them information and creating common interests with them. Hi, my name is Dan. Anybody who's named Dan's on my team. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. Anybody who lives in Columbus or has been to Columbus or Ohio, now they're on my team. Whether you say you're married or divorced or have kids or not. If I say I have 2 boys, anybody who has 2 boys, now they're on my team. If I say I'm an international speaker, anybody who's been in front of a crowd before and spoken in front of a group, now they're on my team. You have to create a common interest, which creates a relationship between you and your audience, and until you get everybody in the audience on your team. That's your intro. Very, very powerful part of your speech, the most powerful part of it.
You're also starting to identify who's really on the team and who's not, right? Because people, as you go through that, will get to identify themselves. And I believe that is one of the most beautiful things that a good public speaker can do, is to just, not everybody is going to be your cup of tea. You're not going to be everybody else's cup of tea. And so how do you demonstrate it beautifully? How do you get people to associate based on common interest? And that's so powerful. And if you do that, right, to the individuals that are afraid of public speaking, it makes it easier. It actually makes it more tangible. It's no longer this big fear factor.
It does, because not everybody, you're not going to get everybody on your team that's going to like your advice or take your advice. So you'll know who they are. Those are the people that their body language is pointed towards the exit. Their arms are crossed. Their legs are folded. Those are the people who have shut off already from whatever reason. They don't want to be there. They were dragged there by one of their friends. They got other things to do. They're thinking about lunch or what they're going to do that evening. And you just don't try to get those people. Don't try to conquer that. And I'm going to get that person to pay attention to me. Don't worry about them. Focus on the people that accept you. And the more you focus on the people that accept you, then it's like sheep following a herd. They're going to be on your team eventually by the time that you're done. But you'll see them loosen up a little bit. And there are different tactics to do that, because typically you're sitting next to somebody who is a stranger when you go to a seminar, for example, and they are closed off because they're protecting themselves. There's a study that was done in a social study class I learned when I was in like 6th or 7th grade. No, 6th grade, 7th grade. And back in the day, a long time ago, when they had phone booths, they had an actor dressed up like a bum. And they'd wait till somebody went in the phone booth and they'd say, "Excuse me, can I have a quarter?" And 90% of the time they'd say no. Then they had the actor go up and tap them on the shoulder. "Can I have a quarter?" And 90% of the time they got it. Because they broke that barrier. Now there's some trust there. Subconsciously, they're not going to harm me. They've crossed through my field of space, personal space, and there's an interaction there. And it's the same with public speaking. You have to kind of create a relationship with your audience somehow. And even in the very beginning, I might say, on behalf of Robert Kiyosaki, his staff, and myself, welcome to the workshop. Thank you for coming here today. But before we kick this off, we'd like you to do, everybody stand up. It's amazing how much control you have as a speaker. They're going to do whatever you tell them to do. Raise your hand, they're going to do that. Stand up, they're going to do that. Everybody stand up, and they stand up. Everybody's face to the right. Now reach up and put your hands on the shoulder of the person in front of you and give it a little squeeze. And then do it to the other person and give it a little squeeze, 2 squeezes. Or just even introduce yourself to people around you. Another funny thing I do is I'll say, "Okay, everybody introduce yourself to the people behind you." And then they turn around, then there's the person's back because they've turned around and they turned around. The next row turned around. Last row's looking at empty. There's nobody there. Then they all laugh. "Oh, you got us, funny joke." But it just loosens them up a little bit. And if you even shake somebody's hand, that touch, that feel right there, that now it's amazing how their body language will now open back up. Because now they're sitting next to somebody who they've met, they've touched, they have a relationship with them now. Before they didn't have anything at all, and they were a complete stranger. And now they'll see the chatting going back and forth, and it just opens the door for them. So it's a way to get your crowd just a little bit through that awkward zone and get them into the comfort level.
I love that. Then talk to us a little bit about how you went down the path of how someone could literally just kickstart their speaking career, or if they don't want to think of it as a speaking career, to really just get in front of people. I'd love for you to share the massiveness of the impact that you've seen when individuals that have achieved that they know a topic really well, how much further they can take their organization if they were to just get in front of more people.
Well, you have to make a decision whether or not you're going to, if you have a profession, like let's just say a doctor who speaks in the medical industry all the time, or pharmaceuticals. They're always having dinners and lunches and always pharmaceutical getting up and speaking. They already have a profession. They're speaking within their industry, which helps maybe promote a drug, which that's how they make money by promoting a new drug. That's one level. So there are many levels of public speaking. There's lecturing, there's instructing, there's keynote speaking, there's product sales speaking, where you're selling a product like I've done, which is the highest level of public speaking. If you want to give a keynote speech to a group of people, usually about 90 minutes is pretty standard. You can make a great deal of money doing so. And some of these speakers make Richard Branson, who's very well known, I think he charges $250,000 for one speech for 1 hour. So, if you want to be a Richard Branson or someone and you create a brand name around yourself and you're more well known, then of course you can charge more, of course. But I would say that most companies will pay anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 per presentation per speaker. And that's pretty standard. And if you want to get to that point where you know enough about your business, but you want to transfer from doing your profession into public speaking, that's a whole nother thing, because that becomes a career. So you can speak within your industry on a topic based on your knowledge, or you can leave all that behind and just become a keynote speaker, international speaker, or national, whatever you want to be, a keynote speaker, which can create a great deal of money. And so, but that's something you have to have the knowledge and background expertise in a field, like I said, in order to do so.
Where do you see product sales coming in? So you've got the topic focused presentations where I guess arguably you could have product sales, but product sales is almost an intersection of topic focus, right? As well as a keynote, because you're delivering the whole thing. Can you talk to the audience a little bit about that?
Keynote is education. You give them education about being a leader, or diversity, communications, or sales, marketing, branding, whatever the topic is you're speaking on, you're going to get paid a fee to do that. Whereas product sales speaking, such as what I've done, where you're selling a course from the stage. So product sales speaking is selling from the stage your service as a consultant, or a training class, or an online training class, or a live training class that you're trying to sell your audience. And that's done more where it's a convention or conference of entrepreneurs, for example. They want to learn how to invest in real estate. Then I can sell them my tax lien course on how to invest in tax liens, or how to invest in options, or stocks, or invest in crypto. We have a course to sell them. That's product sales speaking. That's a whole nother level and a whole different style of speaking, because when I do that, I use a lot of neuro-linguistic programming and Pavlov's theory of cognitive behavior. So when I teach speakers how to speak and give a presentation, we cover intro, body, close, impact, enthusiasm, storytelling, IAP formula, incident, action, benefit, impromptu speaking, personality temperaments, fear, anxiety, gestures, what not to do and say on stage. We build a 3-point talk together, which they can use that template to build any speech for the rest of their career. They'll never have to memorize one word. That is the course on what you need to become a speaker, as opposed to just getting up and trying to wing it. Because we know who those people are. You've been to a presentation, I'm sure, oh, that speaker was horrible, because they haven't been properly trained to do so. But product sales,
or their body flies off the stage all over the place.
Crazy. But when you're selling something from the stage, you have to be able to get your audience involved and interact. So you have to have different elements of your speech. Intro, of course. Then comes the body. Then comes your value proposition. Then comes your call to action. Then comes your close. You have to implement different stages of that to get them to go to the back room and put their credit card down and buy your course, which is a whole nother level. So like, for example, I did one not long ago in Auckland, New Zealand. 500 people in the room. I had a promoter that set everything up and did all the marketing, got the people in the room. My course was $3,000 for a home study course. Or no, that was a 2-day training course. For a 2-day training course on tax liens. And I sold 200 of them at $3,000 a piece. That's $600,000 generated sales in 90 minutes of speaking. I split 50-50 with my promoters, so I made $300,000 in 90 minutes. That's a whole nother world right there. And then on the back end, when you're having your courses, which is a whole nother podcast we can talk about, is upselling them on teaching, coaching, training, consulting, advanced training programs, support packages. That's a whole nother level. And we can upsell them 3 times that amount on the back end on advanced training courses. But that's public speaking from a product sales standpoint, which is the highest level in public speaking.
Dan, this has been amazing. I so appreciate you being here. One of the questions that I'm going to shift gears here, one of the questions that I love to ask our guests is the following. In your history, as we all do, we all have experiences that perhaps we've seen as failures or bumps in the road. Tell us about one of those bumps in the road for you, and what did it teach you?
Absolutely. So here's a bump in the road. We had, at one point in time, the company I spoke for out of Orlando, we had 32 speakers out every single week. We did $290 million from the stage in selling courses. And my sales were astronomical, above every other speaker. And my closing ratios were astronomical. And they were studying me and trying to, how are you doing all of that? Then I started getting an ego because you're getting these big paychecks, making a bunch of money, traveling around. It's a rock star lifestyle all over the country, all over the world, just having a good time doing it, giving the same speech over and over, which you can lay your head down at the hotel and just give the speech just laying there because you said it so many times. It's just scripted at that point. You don't have to think about anything. While I'm up there speaking, I'm thinking about we're going to have dinner, we're going to have lunch that day, and you don't have to think about anything. It's just finally greased wheel. Memory is like a muscle memory. And so you just keep giving it over and over and over. So I got this big attitude. And I thought, I'm the rock star. I'm going to do this. We're going to do this. I don't need to do anything or care about anybody. And then you just kind of get this egotistical attitude about it, which changes your speech pattern and inflection to your crowd. Then they start picking up on that arrogance. And my numbers started diving down. So I immediately called Dr. Donald Moyne, who also taught Tony Robbins. And I said, fly out to my next city. My numbers are dropping. You got to tell me why. So we take 1 million notes, this guy did, 1 million, pages and pages. I said, what'd you figure out? He goes, have you really looked at your audience? I said, yeah, I speak to them twice a day, 6 times a week. But have you looked at them? I said, what do you mean? He goes, look around. They're physically crying. You have them in tears. You're making them feel so bad about their financial investment that they're crying. So what you're doing is you're beating them up. He said, they're not here to be beat up by you. They're here to get your help. So we created something called a wound and heal technique. So what I would do is I'd say, how many people have money in the stock market? Not stock market, which is a whole other thing. I'd say, who's got money in a money market or a CD? And they'd tell me who has it. Or I'd say the stock market. And I'd say, why? I go, it's only produced a 7% return out of the last decade. You're throwing your money away. May as well go to Vegas, roll the dice. It's less risk. With all the money that you could put in your college education, your 529s, you're discarding it because you're taking the risk of the stock. Why would you even take that risk with you and your family's money? Really make them feel bad about their financial decisions. Why would you put your money in a money market or a CD earning 1.5? What's that going to get you? How far is that going to get you? It's going to get you nowhere. Will make you no money. The worst decision you can make with your money, just beating them up on their financial decisions with their money, which is emotional for them because it's their money. And those people who have given their money to a broker who has taken their money and lost it, well, the broker also gets paid if your stock crashes, right? They're going to get their fee no matter what. Don't give your money to a broker. Learn how to do this yourself. There's enough knowledge out there. We learn how to invest in doing it ourselves. So I've made all those mistakes. So we created something called a wound and heal technique. So then I go out and I'd say, who's got money in a money market or a CD? They would raise their hands. Then I would say, instead of me telling them it's bad, I'd let them tell me. I'd say, what are you earning? And they'd say 1.5. And I'd say, how's that working for you? And I would just total silence, what's called a dramatic pause in public speaking. How's that working for you? Finally, somebody's going to say, it's not. Then I say, would you rather have your money in this bucket over here, earning 1.5, or this bucket over here called tax liens, where you can earn 24 to 36% return on your money, mandated by the state, backed by the federal government, and collateralized by real estate? Which would you rather have your money in? What bucket? They go, tax liens. I had them. Done. Sales done. I could say, go sign up right now. And that's what we kind of created to make them tell me what they're doing wrong instead of me telling them what they're doing wrong and beating them up about it. Let them figure out, admit their own errors when it comes to investing their money.
A lot of individuals, it's beautiful that you went there, because just this past weekend I had a conversation with a dear friend of mine, specifically when it comes to what Excelstra does. And he said, listen, every single financial anything out there just consistently beats the client upside the head, makes them feel small, makes them feel like they're not enough, makes them feel like they're not there. All of the negatives, right? What if we could change the paradigm? Listen, you've already achieved a high level of success. What if we could just take the success from where you're at to where you could be by doing all of these other things that are not being talked about in regular circles? That's not your fault that you didn't hear it until now. It's not your fault that you didn't know that your broker gets paid, whether you make money or you lose money, they still get paid. It's not your fault. Now that you know, you have an opportunity to do something better. So when is the best time to plant a tree? Might have been 15 years ago, but the next best time is today, right now. So I'm very appreciative, Dan, that you shared that, because it's very powerful.
Well, I'll bash American education all day long. I'm sorry, but we're like 57th in the world on everything: math, science, geography, history, English, as opposed to other countries. And when I get up and speak, I say, how many people went to college? Most raise their hands. And I say, how many people are currently working in your major field of study? It's about 3 or 4 out of 100. Then I say, what don't they teach you in school? And that's a leading question, which will elicit the response I want. It's a directed question. So then they say, how to make money. And I say, what if you have it? What if you don't have it? How to manage it? How to budget it? How about your checkbook? How to do your taxes? How to invest in anything? How to start a business? They don't teach us any of that. Yet when we graduate, on whatever level we graduate from, what do we have to be the best at? And someone says, making money. I go, that's what I'm going to help you do today. And let's get into it. And, it's just something that we were never taught how to do this stuff in school. But the good thing is there are seminars, there's education, there's the internet. You can learn a lot of information. It's all there for us at our fingertips. So there's no excuses for not learning it. Just learn how to do it.
It is. And at the same time, one of the challenging points that I would have there is, especially for highly educated individuals, think of doctors, think of engineers, think of even busy professionals that own multiple companies. In many cases, the last thing that they need is to go try to figure out how to do it themselves. Could you follow a course? Could you go to a seminar 100%? And at the same time, if you're at a specific level as an entrepreneur or as an employee or level of income overall, you have to also ask the question, are you the best positioned person to do it on your own, to try to figure out how all that works? Or is that the question where you start partnering with individuals who can actually take you to where you need to get to without you sacrificing something else? So you get to decide, as you're listening to this, you get to decide what is it that you do. And what we know is, just like Dan said, the ultra wealthy, they hire individuals that can do the thing for them, because they make their money in other ways as well. So don't forget that as you're listening to a lot of speakers out there. And then the other thing that I took from you, as well as what I've seen happens oftentimes, is when you're in a conference, when you're in an environment where something is being sold, something's being presented, if it doesn't resonate with you, sleep on it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't sleep on it, you're going to buy the thing, you're not going to do the thing, you're probably not even going to open the course. This is where, how many of you have bought courses and have never done anything with them? If you don't sit with that and you have that feeling of no, but you keep pushing forward, it's only you that stands to lose. So evaluate those feelings internally and self-select yourself. It may not be not now, it may be later, or you might go all in and say, yes, this is for me. But going through that and evaluating yourself through that lens will actually help you find the success that you're looking for. Dan, this has been amazing. It's been so much fun having you with us. Time has just flown by. I appreciate you once again. And as you're listening to this episode, my goal is that you please go and leave us a review. Let us know what was the one big thing that stood away or that stood out from you from the conversation with Dan today. And stay tuned for your next episode of Your Business, Your Next Level.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us on Your Business, Your Next Level podcast, where it is all about helping you make more, keep more, and elevating your business to the next level. To learn more, make sure you head over to www.podcast.extelstra.com and don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show. Again, that's podcast.excelstra.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.